Gee whiz golly, I haven't seen yous in ages.
Cobb, you old skirt chaser. What you talking about? I just saw you last week.
Yous for reals, Coop? I haven't seen you since you invented that robot broad that nearly killed us. Don't you remember?
Huh? Robot? Broad? Oh, you're right, Cobb. I guess it just feels like not much time has passed since then. I've just been sitting here doing nothing. Nothing much that matters, no how.
Cooper, are you okay? You looks like you's gonna cry. I'm sorry I abandoned you, but I just got good news.
You kidnapped Christopher Nolan again?
No, Coop, not that. And don't forget, you were the one who came up with that old scheme. Anyhow, since you brought him up, it turns out old Chrissy Nolan made another movie. And it's in theaters right now. No lockdown, no nothing.
The theaters? They're open again? You's not fooling?
It's the honest truth, Cooper. Swear to Leonardo and hope to DiCaprio. Don't you want to see the new Christopher Nolan movie?
You mean the new Christopher Nolan film?
Yes, whatever.
I don't know, Cobb. I just don't know.
You just don't know, but Cooper, you've been a Chrissy Nolan fan ever since we saw Batman Begins at a church youth group lockdown. And you lied and told everybody there that you also saw Memento.
You's right, Cobb. I've been a fan of Nolan long as anyone can remember. I even watched Following and pretended it's not derivative or disappointing across the board.
Cooper, don't tell me. You never watched Tenet, did you? Even though it was the movie you wanted to see more than anything, anyways, anyhow.
It's true, Cobb. I never watched it. I've just been in this room watching other movies.
Other movies? Cooper, what the hell's the matter with you? What happened to my old pal?
Well, it just happened so fast. I couldn't accept that Tenet could be the most disappointing thing since, well, Following. So I just watched other movies to prove Christopher Nolan is a genius. But then, before I knew it, I started to like all the movies. Even ones made before 1999. Even...
Cooper, don't tell me.
Even movies made before the 80s.
Say it ain't so, Cooper. Say it ain't.
But it is so, Cobb. I learned there's a whole wide world of movies out there with dialogue that people can understand and hear correctly, and characters who have the sex even.
Wow, Coop. All this time you've been learning and growing and developing as a person. You're not like a Christopher Nolan character at all.
That's the truth, Cobb. But you know what? I think that means I'm ready. I'm finally ready to watch a new Chrissy Nolan picture with my old pal. That's you.
You got it, Coop. Let's watch Oppenheimer, just you and me, just like old times. Wow, the movie's over, Coop. What'd you think?
What do I think? I think Chrissy Nolan is a genius is what I think. Isn't nobody know how makes a picture like he does? And that Hans Zimmer score? What have you?
Coop, Hans Zimmer didn't do the music for Oppenheimer.
Good one, Cobb. Oh boy, I'd pay all the money from my part-time job in Margaritaville to watch that again at least 3 more times. Maybe more. Nobody makes movies like Nolan, nobody. We should go find him and tell him. Maybe tie him up so he doesn't run away from us again.
Cooper?
Yeah, what is it, Cobb? You want to watch the movie again and make it our personalities for the next few weeks?
No, but, well, I was just gonna say it's good to have you back, Coop, I guess.
Same here. Come on, let's go talk about this 3-hour movie for 4 hours straight at Margaritaville.
Welcome once again to Cinemaholics, a Major Motion podcast, where we talk about the biggest and best films coming to theaters and streaming online. From the San Francisco Bay Area, I'm John Negroni, film editor for InBetweenDrafts.com. And from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he's a freelance film writer and the father of the atomic bombshells. Well, he himself is the bombshell. It's Will Ashton.
What up?
And Will, we have a special guest.
Yes, we do. A very special guest.
Very, very special. I believe this is his podcast debut. Now, a lot of the listeners, they listen to the show and they're like, John got married last year and Will was one of his groomsmen. But
yeah, congratulations.
When are we going to, thank you. When are we going to hear another one of John's groomsmen? We know Maverick Hines and there are 3 other mystery men. Well, we're going to finally cross one off the list. right here, because we have somebody who I definitely, have always wanted to have on Cinemaholics for as long as I can remember. His name is Parth. He is the best. And hey Parth, welcome to Cinemaholics for the first time.
Hey guys, no, good to be here. Definitely, we've talked about this quite a bit, so excited to be here with y'all.
Parth.
What's up, Will?
Hey, I'm just so happy right now.
Yeah, you guys met just last year, but you guys haven't had a chance to really talk much, right? Since the wedding and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
We literally talked about this at the wedding. We were like, when are we getting on the podcast together? So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, you were supposed to be on our Nope review back last year.
You said nope to Nope.
Yeah.
But he said yup to Oppenheimer.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a new Christopher Nolan movie. And Parth, you're somebody I know who you love TV. And I know you like movies too, but I always think of you more as like the guy who's on the latest TV stuff coming out. So I want to kind of start with this. Is there anything you've been watching lately on the TV side to kind of give like an impression to people listening? Like, okay, what's this Parth guy about? Like, what's his tastes? But you could also say movies too, if you have something more relevant to that, if you want.
Yeah, no, honestly, probably the most recent shows that I've just finished. So Succession, loved that show.
Will still hasn't finished it. He says he's too busy.
That's not the reason. No, well, actually, it probably is actually the reason. I am just about done with season 3. I plan to catch up very soon. Yeah, I'm still.
Well, you got to catch up. You absolutely need to catch up.
Yeah, I plan to.
Yeah, no, love Succession. Incredible show. And yeah, it's just actually got into Silo recently on Apple TV. And so
heard good things.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, it's been really good so far. Just only about 2 or 3 episodes in, but really getting into it. It's hard to fill that void after you finish watching Succession. So trying to get there, but it's been fun so far.
What about Christopher Nolan movies? I mean, that's the topic of the day. We haven't gotten a Christopher Nolan movie released normally since Dunkirk in 2017. Tenet did come out sort of in 2020. It was the movie that people said would save movie theaters. It didn't. And before Dunkirk, we had Interstellar, which also was kind of like, it did okay. Maybe I'm underselling it. Will, am I forgetting Interstellar made a lot of money? Because I feel like it did have some like cultural impact, huh?
No, it did well. Yeah, I mean, I think that
I was disappointed.
Yeah, I think the reputation for it has grown more. I think people were initially like positive, but like unsure. I don't know. I still think that's probably his most personal film. So maybe this one might eclipse it. I don't know. That's a
nice
sort of discussion later. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm definitely a fan of Interstellar. I think a rewatch would actually put it higher in my estimation.
What about you though, Parth? Because I've never talked to you about Christopher Nolan. I don't think.
Not really in depth yet. But yeah, I loved Interstellar. But to be honest, I would say Inception's probably still my favorite Christopher Nolan film.
I mean, that one's a blast start to finish, right? I mean, I remember going to the midnight screening for it and just being like, definitely like a basic mind blown kind of thing. Because when I saw it, I was like 19 years old. So I was pretty young. And I remember like just watching the theater, not really knowing, like I didn't have the biggest expectations for it. I just went because I had friends who really wanted to see it. And I just remember being like, man, I've never quite seen a movie like that like has this kind of this big budget, such an original premise. Like it's not based on, some huge IP, nor is it this kind of gimmicky sort of like, it's not Jurassic Park or something like that. It's not franchise bait. And yeah, Inception is just like such a bona fide crowd pleaser. But he hasn't really made a movie since Inception that's really been like that, right? Because I mean, Dark Knight Rises was still kind of more of a yeah.
I mean, I would say Tenet is kind of a return to that Inception style filmmaking.
Such a different movie, though. I mean, it's just completely like, okay, my thing with Tenet is that it's like incomprehensible. Like, and it just doesn't have that same bombast and like satisfying verve that Inception had. Like Inception, you could just watch it and enjoy it. It was way more accessible. Tenet, I feel like you have to have like a degree in like, Babel speak, psychobabble or something to
disagree,
grasp it.
I think.
Do I need to rewatch it?
I think you need to rewatch it. I mean, I think for me,
it's so boring.
Tenet is just more about the vibes. Like, it's that type of film where I think if you get too caught up in the weeds of the techno babble, you're not going to have a fun time. It's kind of like I don't know. I know that Christopher Nolan really loves Michael Mann. I feel like that's probably the most akin to Michael Mann of his filmography, even when The Dark Knight's trying to be Heat. Like, I feel like that's the one that actually kind of gets the vibe of like a later period, like Michael Mann movie. But did I ever tell you about my experience seeing Inception, John?
No, I mean, I've always wanted to know, but I was never bold enough to ask you.
Yeah, it's not like an amazing experience or anything. I just remember that I saw Inception with my dad and my future podcasting co-host Matt Serafini. We all enjoyed the film, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. Now I'm going to do a double feature and sneak into another movie. Do you want to guess what that movie was?
Let's see. It's 2010. Around this time, let's see. Scott Pilgrim versus the World hadn't come out yet.
Right.
Clash of the Titans, I think, was coming out around this time.
Nope. That was in the spring, I think.
Was it the spring? Man, summer 2010. Law-Abiding Citizen, I think, maybe that was spring as well.
I think that was the year before.
Was that 2009? Oh, okay. I don't know.
Anyway.
Night and Day.
That's probably the closest gift you've gotten so far. It was Mark and Jay Duplass's Cyrus.
Wow, I never even saw that.
And so now that we've gotten Barbie from Greta Gerwig, I feel like it's time for the like mind-bending blockbuster from the Duplass brothers. So, the doors opened. Yeah, and Cyrus. Yeah.
Guys, I must confess, I actually never watched Tenet, and I've heard only negative things about it. So I think I need to actually take the plunge and actually watch it, because it sounds like Will's been hyping it up.
Yeah, Parth, I feel like we got to make it a movie night or something.
Yeah, I know, and just push through.
Yeah, I mean, I'll caveat and say that I still think it's probably in the lower half of his filmography, but I think I've enjoyed pretty much every Christopher Nolan film, so that's not a like criticism or anything like that. I mean, I wouldn't put it above like what I consider the more higher echelon films like Memento and The Dark Knight and Inception and definitely The Prestige.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a really fun time. Yeah, I would just say, like I said before, just go in for the vibes. Don't like think too heavy about it. It's just a fun, cool, goofy movie.
Now, Oppenheimer is a little bit different from a lot of his movies. It's definitely closer in spirit, right, to Dunkirk, just in the sense that it is a World War II movie, first of all, or a lot of it takes place during World War II or within the decades surrounding it. And it's also different in the sense that it's a very biographical film. So a little bit more like Prestige, although I wouldn't call Prestige biographical in nature. I mean, it's just kind of using one person's life to tell a story. In this sense, this is definitely a movie more devoted to the real person than I think anything we've seen from him. I mean, Will, you said that Interstellar was his most personal film. Oppenheimer, to me, feels like it's his most like personal film by proxy, almost.
Sure. Well, that's why I said. I mean, I opened it up by saying that, like, it could until now, yeah, it could be, yeah.
This is a very long movie too. One of his longer movies. This is definitely longer than Dunkirk. That's for sure.
I mean, I think this is like the absolute longest you can make a film reel for IMAX. They said.
I could see that because I saw some of the cans that they had on the platters, and it was like, wow, like humongous for this movie. It is 180 minutes, almost exactly 3 hours long because of the credits, like depending on how you balance that out. And this movie, he also did the screenplay. He doesn't always write his movies, or he didn't always used to. He used to a lot of the time he would collaborate with Jonathan Nolan, right? I just mean like Soul.
Oh, you're talking solo? I mean, I think he's been writing his own script since Dunkirk, if I'm not mistaken.
Insomnia, I think, is the only one he didn't write at all.
Right.
And then, I forget which ones he's solo written versus co-written, but
I think it's pretty much. I mean, at least
Tenet,
of late,
he definitely solo wrote. You can tell.
Dunkirk, Tenet, and then now this one, or like his solo writing.
Because Interstellar, he definitely co-wrote that. I know that for sure. So there you go. Okay.
Yeah, because that was Jonathan Nolan's like idea, and then Christopher Nolan kind of shepherded.
Right. So I think though Inception he also solo wrote, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll double check that, but I do think that was one of the. Sorry,
I think I was gonna say that's correct. Yeah,
that's correct. Okay. So anyway, Christopher Nolan, quite a filmography. Oppenheimer itself, as I already kind of mentioned, it's about a real person, J. Robert Oppenheimer, who I think is, I don't know how famous Oppenheimer is to like people in America. I mean, I knew who Oppenheimer was, but I don't know if that was just a symptom of being too online or just, you know, watching a lot of videos about World War II and playing Call of Duty and like stuff like that. I don't know if like, I don't remember learning about Oppenheimer in school. Did you, Parth?
Not really. Honestly, I had to Google him right before the movie just to kind of get the whole background, you know, on you know, his impact on World War II, and yeah, it was incredible because I feel like that quick Google search still didn't do like the movie like justice because like it just dove into so many different aspects of what I thought it would be like going into it. So yeah, no, it was incredible kind of learning more about his life.
He's played by Cillian Murphy, and Cillian Murphy's, I mean, like the performance of his career. I think that this guy went into this movie. I don't even know if he had best actor on his brain, but I mean, he had to at a certain point realize like, oh man, I'm kind of giving the best performance of my career right now. You can kind of tell. It's quite incredible. We cover his life from the 1920s when he is in his 20s through, I won't give away how far past that we go, but I mean, we go through the Manhattan Project and then a lot of the fallout, no pun intended, from there. So we see him like span like young guy, young buck to professor to the post-war sort of, you know, a stage of his life that's a little bit more complicated, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as Cillian Murphy is concerned, I feel like since Cillian Murphy, since, you know, he's just been like a main player for Christopher Nolan's time, but never gotten like one of the main lead roles outside of Scarecrow and Batman Begins. It's like now that Christopher Nolan's finally like, all right, you've paid your dues, you're going to get a lead role. He's like, oh, I can't mess this up. Like, you know, even though he's done lead roles before, obviously elsewhere, like 28 Days Later and whatnot. It just feels like, yeah, he like wants to make the most of it. It seemed like from what I read, like it was a very internally intensive performance, which makes sense given, you know, all the inner turmoil that Oppenheimer has throughout the film. And yeah, I mean, I definitely think this is absolutely one of his best performances for sure.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually wins an Oscar for it, to be honest. I thought he was that good in it.
He's been good for a long time. I mean, I don't think I've seen him in anything since Quiet Place Part 2, which he had a decent role in that, like decently sized. A lot of people recognize him from Peaky Blinders, which wrapped up last year, a show where he was the main guy. And we've seen him pop up in not just Christopher Nolan movies, but he's popped up in all kinds of like smaller roles, like movies of all different stripes, you know, lots of indie stuff for sure. And I think a lot of people before this, if I ask people like, okay, what's Cillian Murphy's, you know, best role? Some people would probably point to something like, you know what, maybe they'd get a little funny and they'd be like Sunshine. How about that? But until now, yeah, this to me is like the definitive performance. And the setup of the movie, I don't want to get into too much detail, but one thing to know about this movie going in, you're going to see basically like every actor in Hollywood who isn't in Killers of a Flower Moon in this movie, basically. Huge ensemble cast, unbelievable, the talent that Nolan and his team managed to assemble here. But if you're going to point to a couple of the other main players, we have Matt Damon, Florence Pugh, and definitely a big performance from Robert Downey Jr., one of his biggest since the big, you know, all the Marvel stuff. And you know, people are looking at me like Robert Downey Jr., you know, more like Robert Downey supporting actor Oscar nomination. Like there's some of that talk going around. Who knows?
Yeah, I feel a little slighted that I'm the only white brunette man that wasn't asked to be in this film.
Well said. But yeah, no, Oppenheimer. What did you think? We'll start with you, Parth. Did you have big expectations for this movie going in? Because I think you saw it after some of the reviews were coming out, so you probably had a sense of like, okay, critics are liking this, but you know that can mean anything, right? What were your expectations going in, and what was your overall takeaway of this movie?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, expectations were definitely high going in. You know, it's Christopher Nolan. You got an amazing cast. It's during opening weekend with Barbenheimer, and so a lot of hype around it. I think like this was probably the first weekend post-COVID that a lot of like your average moviegoer, you know, truly excited to go to the theaters and watch a movie. And so whether Whether it was Barbie or Oppenheimer, I think there was just a lot of hype around it. So expectations were definitely high, and I honestly think it met the expectations, and I probably actually exceeded it quite a bit in my eyes, because I think I got a lot more insight into not only the history behind it, but also like Oppenheimer himself. And I think like the biggest thing for me was, I guess the biggest piece of insight that I didn't really know going into the movie was like how much guilt he had after orchestrating, after Project Manhattan, after like the atomic bomb, like how much guilt he had for playing such a critical role in the development of the atomic bomb, and how it really kind of like structured the rest of his life after. I think there's a lot of key scenes throughout the movie where you see it in his acting. You see it kind of like based on like, his reaction to the trial they had with him. Like you can tell that this man was pretty much haunted for the rest of his life. And so I thought it was incredible from acting, overall story, a lot of the cinematic pieces, towards the end of the movie, like them actually showing like the earth, like being scorched, and burning. I thought it was really, really neat to kind of see it all come together.
Yeah, I mean, you said it there, I think, or you summed it up well, the sense of how, like, this is two movies. And really, like, the stuff with the bomb, I didn't really watch the marketing for this until after the fact. And one thing I noticed is, like, you could watch the trailer and kind of just assume that the climax of this movie is like, oh, yeah, we're building up to the bomb or building up to the atom bomb and all that stuff. That's the middle. And really, this is two movies. The first movie is how do we get to the point where the atomic bomb and the Manhattan Project come together? And then the second movie is like everything after. But I think what's smart about it is that the movie seeds a lot of the post-bomb stuff in the first half. Like, it doesn't just save everything and do it chronologically, which had me thinking a lot about how this feels like the payoff to the experimentation that Nolan was doing with Dunkirk. Dunkirk being a movie that was all about sort of like telling a story. You don't have to do it chronologically. You don't have to do it in a linear way. You can stitch things together. And that ended up being a movie about how the story of history can be told through editing. And this, I feel like, is a way better execution, or an even better execution of that, I should say. But what about you, Will? Because I know if anybody was looking forward to Oppenheimer, it was you. Because I know you love bombs. You think that bombs are the bomb.
Yeah, I mean, I think I prefer like movie bombs. Like a box office disaster that I can get fascinated by, not an atomic bomb that kills.
We had plenty of those this year. That's for sure. This summer.
That is definitely true. But yeah, I mean, well, first I wanted to say, I mean, I think, there's the color segments. I think it's called like friction, and then the black and white segments, which are called fusion, if I'm recalling correctly. And the color version is supposed to be a little bit more, like in Oppenheimer's like recollection, like it's painted by memory and feeling, and then the black and white is supposed to be, this is like what happened. This is more factual to reality. Obviously, it's a film, a narrative documentary, or not document, narrative dramatic film. So there's license, but yeah, I mean, it definitely showcases, I think, a very interesting progression point forward for Nolan, in the sense that he's had always this kind of engineer-like mentality to making films. I think I even talked about that when we were discussing, or actually you weren't in our Tenet review, but when we reviewed Tenet on the show, I was talking about how like that movie kind of feels like this like big kind of ticking clock that's very meticulously made, and whether or not that hurts the film in terms of the emotionality or the logic of it. I just think he gets so kind of caught up in the gears and the locks and spins of it that he thinks about all like the kind of things that can make a film work. And what's fascinating about this one is it's about a guy who's so caught up in the how, in the sense of like, can they pull this off? Can we make this atomic bomb that can scare our enemies and like allow, like this huge scientific breakthrough to happen, but he doesn't really ultimately focus on what could be the why and like how that could be used against him, and when that sense of control can escape him and be far more climatic or far more disastrous than anything that he could have really envisioned in the broad scheme of things. And yeah, I mean, obviously Nolan isn't responsible for anything quite as callous as that, I would hope. But yeah, I mean, just that sense of like feeling so like caught up in the idea of being someone who can pull off these huge feats, like, can be someone that can do such great monumentous things, but not really understanding what that could cost someone, especially in terms of their personal life and well-being, really makes this rich in a way that I feel like other Nolan movies have in the past maybe not been able to tap into, which is that emotionality and that core human element that I feel like is so crucial to making this movie work, in addition to the technical mechanics of it. And yeah, I mean, it just makes for a definitely more mature and more compelling film than I think we've seen from Nolan in recent years, at least since Interstellar, in my view, and definitely one of the most impressive theatrical experiences for me this year. I mean, definitely seeing it in IMAX is just an incomparable experience, though I'm sure it works in normal standard formats as well.
Yeah, I think all three of us saw it in IMAX, correct? I think, Parth, you said that you saw it in IMAX?
Yes. Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah, I did too. I saw it in 70 millimeter. And if you're also in the Bay Area and you're like, where can you get the 70 millimeter experience? They are playing it at the AMC Metreon in San Francisco that way. I believe it's the only way you can see it. The last time I saw a Nolan movie in IMAX was at the Tech Museum in San Jose, which that's like the dome kind of IMAX where it's not a good idea to watch a movie that way, in my opinion, but whatever. Look, this movie is making way more money than a lot of his other movies have lately. Interstellar, ever since Dark Knight Rises, I should say, his movies have been making less and less. Interstellar made around 700 to 800 million. Dunkirk was around 500 million, and Tenet was even less. It was like 300 something. This movie's already blown past Tenet. It's going to blow past Dunkirk. It could get up to around Interstellar, maybe more than Interstellar. We'll see. It's only in its like second week or so, and it doesn't have a ton of competition except for Barbie, which, I mean, those two movies have been helping each other out quite a bit. And I point all that out because I do think, like, to what you're saying, Will, there has been this sort of pressure on Christopher Nolan to, be the last auteur blockbuster filmmaker standing. The only guy who can get people to watch his movies just because he made them. Movies that are not based on anything recognizable, but, original screenplays, original ideas, and still with huge budgets and with a lot of people paying attention to them. And a lot of people, like me especially, were concerned in this summer environment where we have just seen movie after movie get huge budgets and try to get people's attention just crater. We've had way more bombs this summer than success stories. The success stories include, I mean, even before the summer, Super Mario Brothers, huge hit, and also Guardians of the Galaxy and Across the Spider-Verse did well. Other than that, we really have not seen these movies. Like, we've seen movies just completely just be huge disasters financially because they have massive budgets. And I mean, just look at the budget, for example, of something like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. That movie cost like $320 million. A lot of it was because of the de-aging. A lot of it was because of the COVID restrictions. And if you look at Barbie and Oppenheimer, I think both of these movies were only made for like $100 million or so. I'll double check that, but I don't think these had huge budgets. Yeah, Oppenheimer, $100 million budget, and it's already exceeded past the point where it needs to break even. And I think that when the pressure is on for Nolan, I do think that he is able to deliver, and I'm particularly impressed that he was able to make this movie under a really hard development process. It's a movie he's been, wanting to make for a while. He started it up, I think 2021 is when this movie was announced. So I believe they were filming it last year. So they did have the benefit of like they weren't dealing with the hardest impacts of like lockdown and like COVID rules and stuff like that. And so I bring all that up just to say that he's still got it. And I'm happy to see that he is still able to deliver a movie that has like a soul to it. That was my main issue with Tenet. I know you like that movie, Will, but to me, that movie was just soulless. It didn't have anything going for it beyond like just this weird mechanical gimmick. And to me, it just felt like a gimmick and a waste of a good performance from the lead actor. But going back to you, Parth, I mean, have you felt this way about the box office lately? I mean, have you been watching movies in the movie theater? I know you don't have like the film critic baggage we do. You get to choose which movies to watch. How have you felt like, this environment's been? I know you mentioned that like it just feels like Barbenheimer has been like a moment, like a reason to go to the theater. But how else has it felt for you?
Oh yeah, no, there was an incredible amount of hype going into this, the opening weekend. And I think you mentioned it, John, but yeah, I think Oppenheimer opening weekend over 80 million, Barbie double that, over 160 million. So combined, both movies just very much exceeded expectations. And so I think as a moviegoer, it just created a lot of excitement to actually going back to the theaters and watching movies. Like I like how neither one of these movies were available through a streaming platform, because I think that takes away from a lot of the movie-going experiences that, the audiences really get to benefit from. And so, yeah, I think this was pretty much like one of the best weekends to go watch a movie since COVID happened. And so I think overall, like, it was really neat to kind of see all this hype around it. In fact, actually, I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, but I saw a lot of people even like dress up like for the Barbie movie. Like, so when I went to see Oppenheimer, I saw a bunch of people like dress up like they were about to go to a club or something in all pink. And it was actually like just a different type of like buzz and a different type of energy that you really don't get from the movie theaters anymore. And so it was really, really neat to see that.
Friend of the show, Mike Overholtz, co-host of Mad Men Men, he literally dressed up in a Barbenheimer outfit. So he was wearing half pink, half dark clothes because he did the Barbenheimer double feature. But unfortunately, I did not do that.
That is awesome.
I was going to ask, has there been any example, at least in recent memory, where counter-programming helped the other film? Like,
we already talked about this with Barbie, Will. You asked this question.
All right.
Last week.
Fine.
I still don't have an answer for you. I don't think Parth does.
Well, I don't know.
I think it's unique.
I was opening up to Parth. If he wanted to answer, let him speak for himself.
Fine.
Nothing in recent memory. Well, honestly, I think this is probably the first of its type where you have like two complete opposites of movies really help each other out quite a bit and like build upon each other. And so, yeah, I don't remember going in and seeing like this much hype about like two completely different movies before. So it must have been at least like 5 years since something like this has happened.
Will, what's your theory for why these two movies caught on like they did? Like, why these two? Why not Transformers Rise of the Beast? Like, what is it you think it was about them that just hit?
Well, I mean, I think it's a number of factors, but I think there was genuine interest in both films. Like, I think, as you were saying, Christopher Nolan is a name. I think people trust him as a filmmaker, regardless of what they thought about Tenet, if they saw Tenet. I mean, it's just that sense like, oh, Christopher Nolan is doing this 3-hour epic about, one of the most pivotal figures in American history. That's sure to be good. And then they saw that Barbie was coming out, and on the same day, and it's like, oh, wow, like, a film really interesting. Greta Gerwig is going to do this wild, poppy, fizzy, entertaining take on the Barbies. And it's like, all right, these two movies are coming out the exact same day. They're totally different. It's like very easy to see the like split photos of like Barbie, like pink and bright and bubbly. And then like the black and white photo of, Oppenheimer smoking a cigarette in all black and white. And it's just like, this is such an odd pairing. It would make for an incredible double feature. And also it's like the thing where it's like, not to presume as far as genders are concerned, but like women would be more likely to want to see Barbie and men would be more likely to see Oppenheimer. There's crossover there, of course. So it's like date night. It's like one for the ladies and one for the fellas. And like kind of, it's such an event that built from that meme that like people felt the desire, like, I'm not going to get the full experience unless I see both of these movies. Cause that's like the total like 180 opposite kind of thing. And so, I mean, I think it also helped that like both movies were well received and have good word of mouth, not just from critics, but audiences. And I think that's why the second weekend has been really helpful for both. It's not just the meme of like, hey, let's see these two totally opposite movies. It's an event, but also just the fact that they're both good and people are like generally recommending them on their own merits has been really, I think, beneficial to both films. And yeah, I mean, I think people were just also really craving an event film in a way that, it's, we don't really get to see like a big, epic movie about Robert Oppenheimer, or we haven't seen a like major live action movie about Barbie in a way that like we've seen old Indiana Jones before. We've seen Transformers before. We've seen The Flash and the other Justice League DC movies. But this was like totally different, new, and I think that's the big reason why this is becoming such a runaway hit for both films.
All right, I'm going to read a kind of negative review of this movie from Letterboxd, and I'll read one positive, and I'll get y'all's reactions. All right, so this is from Backwards Man, username on Letterboxd, said that love that I can openly say that Oppenheimer ain't it, at least for me. A 3-hour expository dialogue courtroom drama with very little new or profound to say. But because Nolan works with the best sound editors and mixers in town, the whole thing gets to feel important and big. The shot reverse, shot talk without breaks play, captured in beautiful close-ups by Hoyt van Hoytsema, is really just that. An overblown trick elaborately put together by grand trickster Nolanito. But the further it goes on, the more apparent the tricks and cracks become. There's a lot more to this review, but I'll finish out with the last bit here. For me, this felt highly inadequate, boring, at times sloppy, and for the most part, not engaging. At times, I was hoping Nolan was going to go total weirdo mode and get super experimental, but the biopicness and political bulk of the film just render this project into obliviousness. Either of you have a reaction to that?
I generally try to hear people out, even when they, I disagree with them, but I don't know, this kind of comes across a little smug, like they were going in wanting to hate the movie and they found reasons to not like it. It was like, see, I was right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like it's definitely a movie that's not for everyone, right? I think like there is a lot of like historical elements to it, and I can see why like maybe your average moviegoer like myself, there's probably a lot of people like that might not be as into Oppenheimer as, because like I've heard from a lot of people that Barbie was a more entertaining film, and like it's definitely like more of a calm experience. I think I walked out of Oppenheimer a little bit like stressed. And it was a lot. It is exhausting, and it is a lot more political than I thought it was going to be. And so I think like it is an acquired taste, and I think like you have to have an appreciation for that part of history to really appreciate this movie. But I don't know. I think overall, this movie just kind of checked all the boxes for me in terms of like what the genre was for this movie, and I guess what it was trying to accomplish. I think Nolan did a great job, putting this together, and I don't think it was too excessive. Maybe 3 hours was unnecessary, but I don't think he could have cut much out of it, to be honest. I think everything kind of like was put together for a reason. So,
yeah, I think my favorite parts of the movie probably were in the second half. And I could see why somebody would look at the second half of the movie and diminish it to courtroom drama and, oh, it's kind of boring or whatever for them. It was never boring for me. And I think one of the reasons is because that's when I felt like the movie that's when I thought it was starting to break free of the constraints of like a biopic and start to really be more, in some ways, unhinged. I mean, there are a handful of scenes in it. There's one involving just like through the sound editing alone, a like cross-cutting in this like kind of I don't even know what kind of room it really was, but basically Oppenheimer is giving a speech and it's being like cross-cut with like people cheering, but then people screaming. And it's like one of the best scenes I think Christopher Nolan's ever directed.
Yeah.
And that's the second half of the movie. And it's never always on that register, but I mean, that's part of why it works. It's a frenetic movie. I never thought that it was like slow at any point, which is amazing considering it's 3 hours. And that's why it's exhausting.
Yeah. Parth, did you know that the woman that's like getting her skin melted is Christopher Nolan's daughter?
I did not know that, but I did hear that he likes to put family members in his movies, and so that doesn't surprise me. But I didn't know it was his daughter specifically.
I mean, I get the reason, like he wanted it as a filmmaker to be like Oppenheimer is feeling like the weight of like the humanity that's been lost by his actions, and for Nolan, it's like nothing seems more harrowing than my own child, being desolated. But it just reminds me of in Revenge of the Sith, when George Lucas hired like his one son to be like a Jedi lightsaber fighter, and like he just gets like instantly shot, and it's just
it could be worse though. It could be like when in Mad Men, when Matthew Weiner cast his son as like the creepiest kid in the planet.
We need the most creepy, perverted kid possible. I know, my son.
All right, I have a positive review over here, and then we'll play the Rotten Tomatoes game and explain the Rotten Tomatoes game to Parth, of course. I don't think this will be his first time playing it, but okay, positive review. This one is from George Carmy, who gave it 5 stars. A ridiculous achievement in filmmaking, an absurdly immersive and heart-pounding experience. Cillian Murphy is an effing stud, and RDJ will be a frontrunner for Best Supporting Actor. Ludwig Göransson put his entire, I'm not going to say this word, but it refers to the family jewels. He put all that into the score, coupled with a sound design that made me feel like I took a bomb to the chest. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much my takeaway. By the way, Göransson's music in this, he did the music for a lot of things over the years. One of my favorite soundtracks he ever did, funny enough, is Community. I love the music for Community, and it's completely different in every way from this. But yeah, Göransson, love to see Nolan working with somebody who isn't Hans Zimmer.
Yeah. I had absolutely.
I love Hans Zimmer, to be clear.
I figured that's what you meant, but I had absolutely no idea that the composer of this film also worked on Community.
Oh yeah, it's I think mainly the first season, but I know for Tenet, Göransson also did the music for that, but I didn't really like that movie, so I didn't really listen to the music much. But Hans Zimmer did Dunkirk, and Interstellar was by Zimmer as well, and so yeah, Göransson's here, he's hanging out. Let's play the Rotten Tomatoes game then, unless you had something else, Will?
Well, I just wanted to also say just the incredible score. I mean, there's just some moments, especially at the beginning, where you're like seeing inside like Oppenheimer's mind, and it has like the science version of Tree of Life happening, where you're just like kind of getting these like fleeting moments of like nostalgic reminiscing, and then like seeing like the inner turmoil of like this great idea that can't really come to fruition at that point in his life, consuming and overwhelming him. And yeah, it just, some of the best use of IMAX I've seen in a long, long time.
There's in my Letterboxd review, I almost put this because I did like a bullet list of stray thoughts. I almost put this one in. One of the reasons I didn't was because I didn't want to get you too mad at me, Will. But I wrote like, what if a Terrence Malick movie was good? And I knew that would just get you all fired up.
Yeah, I mean, maybe someday you'll see the light. I guess the day is not today.
So Parth, we like to play a game called the Rotten Tomatoes game, where you and Will have to guess the Rotten Tomatoes score as of the day we're recording. And but I am curious, Parth, have you seen the Rotten Tomatoes score at any point for Oppenheimer? Be honest.
I actually haven't looked it up recently. So I did look at it right before I went to watch the movie about a week ago.
It should be good. Probably different.
Yeah. I'm assuming it's different.
If anything, it makes it harder because then you're like, ooh, do I go up? Do I go down? Do I stay?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I honestly think like it's probably really good if I had to guess.
Well, you can take the first guess. We have 409 reviews counted. One of them's mine, so you get a little hint. I liked it. So yeah, Parth, what's your best guess?
it's got to be 90 plus. It's got to be up there. I'll go with even 90.
An even 90 from Parth. All right, Will, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely thinking it's in the 90s. Which score did Parth say?
Parth said 90.
Okay, 90, just flat 90?
Yeah, we're not doing Price is Right rules. We're just doing who's closest.
Yeah, well, you better not one-up me.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, but I think I said the score for Barbie. Did I say 94 for Barbie?
I don't remember what you said for Barbie, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to say 94 for this one as well.
I'm sorry, Parth, but yeah, Will's been playing the Rotten Tomatoes game for a while. He got it spot on, 94%. And,
man.
Yeah. Sometimes he's good. Sometimes, he's feeling the heat. But this time, Will has to go first for audience score. Will, what do you think? We have 5,000 plus verified ratings.
I feel like it's high. I feel like the audience might be a little restless for this one, like your average audience, in a way that, I mean, I love the court scenes. I didn't really get a chance to talk about that. I love not only because it's thematically resonant, the consequence of his actions, all that. I also love seeing court scenes in movies. Like I never want to go to court in person, but like if there's a court scene in a movie, like I'm totally in. I'm excited. What's going to happen here? What are we talking about?
I can just see you in jury duty, just being like, well, yeah, but when are you going to yell and scream and stuff?
When does Jack Nicholson come?
Yeah.
And where is Tom Cruise?
Yeah. Where's my cousin, Vinny?
Yeah. But yeah, I'm going to say 87%.
All right, Parth, your turn. Will guessed 87.
Oh man, I'll have to go with. I'll say 82.
Oh man, if you had gone higher than Will, you would have it. It's 92%. Parth, I think you meant to say 92, but you misspoke. You were like 82. That's what happened.
I'm surprised by that. Honestly, I thought it had been. I didn't think it was going to be that high.
Yeah, I think y'all's logic was pretty sound, assuming that the length, right, would kind of hinder some people. Be like, yeah, it's kind of long, and but apparently people like watch the movie and were like, it's long for a good reason. Cinema score. Will, did you have a guess for that? Cinema score, Parth. I don't know if you ever keep up with that. Yeah,
I think I got spoiled on this one, so I'll let Parth take it.
So Parth, are you aware of how cinema score works?
No, I'm not. How does it work?
All right, so
can I explain?
Will, you can do the explanation.
So there are these kooks in Las Vegas who think, these people who spend all their time in the sun next to slot machines and cactuses, they represent the whole of America, their taste, their interests, their thoughts. So Will
has a bit of a gear grinding take on cinema score.
So they get whoever many people. I don't know if it's ever the same people or just different.
It's different. We know that. It's okay. They choose Las Vegas because of the tourism. A lot of people go to Vegas and they watch movies while they're there.
Yeah. But then again, you or I, we both recently or somewhat recently went to Vegas. Neither of us participated in a cinema.
Yeah, because neither of us went to the movies.
Right.
Did you think that you were going to get off the plane and somebody was going to survey you about?
I would hope so.
So, Will, what you're telling me is I should probably guess lower for this one.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying, any guess is kind of reasonable, assuming we just don't have any clue who this audience could be. But just generally speaking, it's just supposed to represent your average random, moviegoer audience in America. What would you think they would guess? Or
and the grades themselves, it's letter grades. So they do a survey kind of thing. And so the highest grade you can get is A+, and then it goes A-, B+, B-, and so on, all the way to F. And most movies do not get A+ or F. For the most part, movies tend to get in the B range and in the A range. But like a B cinema score is actually like really bad because these tend to be inflated a bit. So a lot of Marvel movies, for example, are like A-.
You know what? So I'll go with the A-. I'll go with the A-. That sounds about right. Either B plus A- is probably would be my guess, but I'll be optimistic here.
And Will, you said you were spoiled on this, or you think you were spoiled?
I'm pretty sure I was spoiled. It's A, right?
It's A. Yeah. So Parth, you were smart to go a little higher. You weren't far off. Yeah. And then we'll finish off with Letterboxd. which my favorite app, your favorite app, everybody's favorite app. So on Letterboxd, it has 703,000 watches, a ton of ratings on Letterboxd. It's number 52 right now in the Letterboxd top 250. So this is like what, the third film of the summer to hit the top 250, because we had Spider-Verse, and I think we had another movie pretty recently, like maybe Past Lives or something like that, was in this range as well. But yeah, we'll start with you this time, Will. Average rating 0 to 5. What do you think the Letterboxd score is?
I'm gonna say 3.4.
3.4. So Parth, these are like out of 5 stars, and so it's like decimal points. So we'll just guess 3.4 out of 5.
Yeah, Parth, are you on
surprised. I'm not, but I'm surprised you guessed 3.4 after all these other positive ratings.
Yeah, I in retrospect, I feel like I might have lowballed this one, but
what do you think though, Parth? It's your turn.
I'll do a 4, an even 4.
Yeah, Parth is way closer, Will. Yeah, it's 4.4. That's one of the highest we've seen. I was surprised too, Will, when I was just like, yeah, it's in the top 250. Yeah, the A cinema score, and you were just like, yeah, I think it's got like an F or whatever.
I think I tuned out when you said it was in the top 50. So.
Oh yeah, that was because I was talking, and you're like, I got no point in listening.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're way over time, but thank you so much for coming on, Parth. It was fun talking Oppenheimer with you. I can't wait to find out what other summer movie that is making more money than expected we'll talk with you about again. I just bring that up because Nope was kind of like that, but hopefully we won't have to wait a whole other year to have you back on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, guys. Definitely want to come back soon. I thought this was an incredible movie. I think like this is the type of movie to get moviegoers that don't really watch movies out to the theaters. And so I think like, hopefully like, there's a lot of appreciation from that perspective from folks like y'all that go to practically every single movie that comes out. It's kind of cool to see the average moviegoer get this excited about a movie. So it was
You would have
nice.
thought Barbie and The Father of the Atomic Bomb would bring people together. Not me.
Yeah.
My agenda too, Parth, is that, Will hates it when I talk about TV shows on Cinemaholics for some reason. I don't know why. So my agenda is to have you back on for like when Will like pouts and fusses that I'm like, oh, let's talk about this TV show everyone's watching. That would be a fun discussion. Oh, Will, you won't do it? Maybe I'll call up Parth. I don't know.
I got you. So whenever you want to discuss The Boys season 4 or whatever, something I'm never probably going to watch.
Honestly, Parth,
I'm a huge fan of The Boys. Yeah, I've watched all 3 seasons. Yeah, so I'm a huge fan.
I can't get Will to watch shows I know he would like. Like that's where we're at.
Will,
because then he'll be like watching stuff he knows he won't like. It's weird.
But I feel like there's so much we could talk. I could talk, I think, another hour about this movie. We didn't even talk about how this is like I don't know if it's the first, but like maybe the first Christopher Nolan movie with the sex scene in it.
It is.
That was
did
trippy.
Prestige did Prestige only hint at stuff? I don't remember.
Well, I was trying to remember if Memento had a sex scene.
I think it. Might have. Maybe I don't remember.
I thought that scene was super creative too because it finally like kind of pulled in Emily Blunt's character, like Kitty. It kind of like we got to see it from her perspective, and so I thought that was like super creative and unexpected as well. So it kind of threw me off.
Yeah, Emily Blunt was quite good in this too. No shortage of good actors. Casey Affleck gets like 2 scenes, but just like obliterates the time that he gets. It's quite great.
Yeah, Florence Pugh is also really good in this movie. I feel like. I want to talk more about her, but obviously we didn't get the time.
Yeah, and the stuff I would want to talk about if we had more time is like just how sort of like this movie reckons with like communism and stuff, and like just the McCarthy era in general, and a lot of the politics around like why did we drop 2 bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and like there a lot of that history is something that I know like growing up and like what you learn in school. There's way more going on with that than like what we learn right through like the American like school system, and I appreciate a movie like this that investigates that and pokes at it a bit.
Yeah, we didn't even mention Einstein.
Yeah, we didn't even go into the details of like why like Louis Strauss had like such a he had such a huge grudge on him, like and tried to destroy his life, and like
we didn't even bring up the poisoned apple. The Snow White stuff. Truly a great what a hook of an opening kind of thing. But of course, one of the reasons we didn't get to a lot of that is because it's such a dense movie. I know coming up, we're going to be talking about Haunted Mansion, which came out this past weekend. Will and I have seen it already, so we're hoping to talk about that here soon. But there's also Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. Will has seen that, but I have not. But I will probably see it. No promises. The one that I think I want to watch next, there's two movies I want to watch next. They Clone Tyrone, which just got on Netflix, and Talk to Me, the new horror movie. And I just have not been watching movies. I kind of took a little bit of a break from movies this past week. Oh yeah, the other thing is Theater Camp, which I've already seen, but I'd love to talk about at some point. But Will, what would you prioritize above all those movies? Like, if we could only pick one, which one would you go to?
I really want to see A Fire, which you're playing at the Harris right now. I would love to talk about that with you. I don't know if you're ever going to watch it, but... I
have a screener for it, so I can watch it. Yeah. There's also the Beanie Bubble. I'm not going to watch that. Yeah,
right. I forgot about that.
There's a lot of stuff. Parth, of all those movies I just mentioned, were there any that sounded interesting to you or that you've seen? I
really want to watch Talk to Me. That one looks really horrifying. And so I think that'd be a fun movie to watch in the theaters.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, we'll deliberate that and keep you all posted. But for now, we'll say goodbye. So from the Internet California, I am John Negroni.
From the Internet Pennsylvania, I'm Will Ashton. I wanted to...
That was pretty bad.
I know.
And
I wanted to go out on a bang.
Okay, all right. And from Houston, Texas, it's Parth. Hey, Parth.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hope to see you soon.
Yeah.